I want to thank Mayor Giuliani. Our next panel is on FinTech, financial technology, and how it is affecting the legal world now and how it might affect the legal world in the future. Our panel today consists of partners from two major law firms, Alston and Bird in the United States and Taylor Wessing in Europe, the Middle East and Asia, with active FinTech practices, and a panel with the CEOs of Tradero and Tipalti, two Israeli-backed FinTech companies, and the General Counsel of Carmel Ventures, one of Israel's top venture capital funds. So the name of the panel is FinTech, Disrupting Your Financial World. Hope you enjoy. Richard, take it from here. Where is Richard?
Thank you, Ron. Our panelists can come up. We need one more chair. Thank you. That's a tough act to follow. Never thought I'd be following Rudy Giuliani. So this is our panel on FinTech. My name is Richard Simons. I'm a partner at Alston and Bird for the FinTech finance team. Thought we'd start with a little, before we introduce our panelists, with a little show here. This is you in your office with all your paper, and this is our next generation here with their iPhones and iPads. This is where you live. It's a nice Tel Aviv Bauhaus architecture, and this is where they live. You probably all recognize that. Some fun facts about FinTech. Global investment in FinTech companies totaled $19 billion in 2015, with $13 billion invested in VC-backed FinTech companies, 100% jump in a record year. Israel is a leader in FinTech technology with over 400 startups. There's a place which covers that at the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange. In the United States, marketplace lending originations, which are FinTech originations, have doubled every year for the past 8 years. And 5 of the top 6 Swedish banks refuse to deal in cash, and Sweden is on track to be completely cashless. Some of the things that FinTech is promising for the future are very interesting. Banks, cash currencies all going away, people doing everything through internet, companies like Google and using virtual currencies like Bitcoin, people claiming to be able to do mortgages without putting anything on paper. T+0, instantaneous settlements for everything, something that the DTC in the United States is looking at. And there have been several articles on eliminating corporate lawyers by doing contracts on a FinTech blockchain platform. I'm very skeptical about that, but that's out there. Generation Y wants to communicate and share information, even on financial markets. So we wanted to do some polling questions to get us going. Our first question, and please just raise your hand. How much is FinTech affecting your practices as general counsel? A lot. It's like 2 people. B, a little. C, not at all. And D, not sure exactly what FinTech is. Okay, I'm afraid there might be a few of you. How much do you think FinTech will affect your company in the future? A lot. B, a little. C, not at all. It's a bunch of hype. It doesn't affect lawyers. D, still not exactly sure what it is. Okay, so we have a variety of answers here. Okay, so before we continue, I'd like our panel to introduce themselves. Start
I'm Janamit. I'm the founder of CEO of Tipalti. Tipalti is a solution for managing a holistic approach for managing a complete supplier payment life cycles.
Joseph Kuss. I'm a corporate partner with Taylor Wessing, based in our London office.
I'm Sharman, Italian guy. I represent an Italian bank here in Israel, Intesa San Paolo. It is an Italian bank, not Brazilian. And I aim to do business with M&A activities, financing group, international group, different international groups, and I'm working also on innovation. We'll talk about later about innovation for the banks and for the customers.
I'm VP Legal Affairs and General Counsel of Carmel Ventures. Carmel is a venture capital fund that was founded in 2000 in Israel and is focused on investment in early stage IT companies, including, of course, FinTech companies.
Good afternoon. My name is Dominique Shelton. I'm a partner in the Los Angeles office of Alston & Bird, and my practice focuses on privacy and cybersecurity.
I am Jonathan Best. I'm the CEO and founder of Tradio, which is a social trading brokerage and platform. Think of Facebook meets financial trading.
Great, so the first thing we'd like to talk about is the current market for FinTech. What are key areas of growth? What is the general market for startups? Areas of growth in the market, what are the key areas of opportunity? First, I guess I think we could talk about the UK or the European market.
So I think it's fair to say that across our 29 offices, across Europe, Asia, the US, the UK is by far the most active. So this is the one being the market with the highest growth numbers in FinTech. Revenues in 2015 just over 6.6 billion. Investment levels of roughly 550 million. As of the beginning of this year, we had about 66,000 people employed in FinTech in the UK. That's more than the combined coming out of Australia and Singapore and Hong Kong. I think there's a very good reason why London is performing very strongly in this market. Of course, being the financial hub that it is globally, but you also have a very sizable indigenous tech-savvy population, ready access to capital, and overlay that with a fairly friendly regulatory regime, tax incentives, and a government which is really on board and pushing this incentive. Now, I think the major change that we're seeing as of late was if a number of years ago there was a perceived threat from or perceived by incumbents from disruptors such as the companies that we have here to their business models, and the approach back in the days used to be to try and acquire solutions of the type. I think it is now much more about a collaborative spirit, trying to see how people can integrate innovation into their systems, and that is, I think, yielding results on both sides of the equation, and resulting in very positive bottom lines.
Great, thank you. In the U.S., we saw a bit of a dip in the fourth quarter, but things seem to have come back. In the marketplace lending world, there have been some issues with a company called Lending Club, and some of the other FinTech lending companies have had issues recently, but we think things are going to be coming back. Hen, why don't you talk about the market in Israel and with your company?
Sure. So thank you for the slide about Tipalti. I'll say a few words about Tipalti and then about the market and where I see growth. So Tipalti manages a complete life cycle, end-to-end life cycle from supplier onboarding, vetting, managing payment exceptions, tax compliance, AML compliance, integration with ERP, really taking the whole life cycle where ERP drops through the business process, the financial execution, and then completing the business process. And we work with several leaders of the world that we see here on the slide. In terms of where I see FinTech succeeding, obviously FinTech is a word that covers many types of businesses. You mentioned lending, there's consumer business. I see FinTech extremely succeeding in automation and making financial services more accessible, whether for consumer or for businesses. If you think of companies like Stripe and Square, and at the same vein, Tipalti and WePay and other companies in that sphere, they either, like Tipalti, automate and remove a lot of labor-intensive tasks and human error-prone tasks and automate them, or they make, like Stripe, like Square, they make acquiring cards and processing cards very, very accessible and easily accessible for every company, whether it's a one-man startup or not. So I see a lot of growth in automation, in making financial services more accessible for smaller and larger companies.
Thank you. Danny, would you, same question?
Yes. So Intesa Sanpaolo is the largest banking group in Italy, one of the top banking group also in Europe. We have 19 million customers, 11 million in Italy and 8-9 million abroad. And we have 90,000 employees, 90. So you understand it is a very traditional bank. And, you know, with FinTech, thanks to FinTech, we can save a lot of jobs. We can reduce organization. We can cancel a lot of branches in the territories. So you understand how big is the threat from one side and how is big the opportunity from the other side. We started to understand that we have to update our business model a few years ago, so we established an innovation center, and we have now today 100 people focused on innovation. FinTech for the bank itself, and also innovation for our corporate customers. So we help them to understand which are the trends, which are the new technologies, in order to have also, on our behalf, the best companies as customers, because we want they survive, they succeed. So we found that FinTech is a key element to stay in the market and to succeed in the market. So we have now around 5 macro areas that we are following. The first one is technology for the usual banking services. Tipalti could be one of those. So to provide new ways for lending, financing, deposits, and so on. Remittance, payments. A second sector is investments. I think that we have now a representative of a new company, meaning that there are platforms that can provide information, tools for trading, and also for long-term investments. And there are new services, crowdfunding, social investment, so there are a lot of opportunities also in the area of investments. Then you have a third macro area that is insurance. You can sell insurance policies in the healthcare, for cars, for home. So a lot of business also in this area through the new technologies. You have another sector that we define it customer engagement. All the tools, new technologies that can facilitate the relationship with the customer. And because today the bank and technologies are very scary for a lot of people. But now we think that there will be in the next future really new ways to interact with the smartphone as well. And the fifth area that is very important, that we are very involved is cybersecurity, because all these digital devices allow to the hackers a lot of weak entry points. So security is probably the biggest challenge in this area. So we really believe in FinTech, and we are very active in this area.
Great, thank you. Mikal.
Yes, more slide. Carmel is currently managing over $800 million under management. We have 4 funds in the fund, and we were formed, as I mentioned before, in 2000. And we see a lot of deal flow, of course, of many investments. I think that in the FinTech industry, I mean, this market is still a hype market. We see a lot of quality deal flow in this area. Some entrepreneurs are really first-timer, that it's the first time, and some of them have more experience even with the global markets. But as a general thing, I think that in the Israeli industry, you see a lot of innovation in this area of investment. And Carmel this is definitely one of the areas that we are very interested in investments and very much focused on it. We have many FinTech companies in our portfolio for the new funds and also for older funds. And actually, we have the knowledge for FinTech within the fund itself. Partners and associates and principals in the fund have a lot of experience with FinTech, and part of them are really expert in FinTech. And we're also very active in the FinTech community. We organize every quarter a meetup, a FinTech meetup, when you meet all the industry. And sometimes the entrepreneur comes with their new idea, sometimes just to introduce them to new investors, and sometimes just a brainstorming of innovation ideas and things that comes up. And also active in other forums that the fund is involved. So I can definitely join my friends here in the panel to say that it seems like there's still a lot of opportunities in this area of investments. We have global payment companies, companies that provide banking services, and other areas of the FinTech world, but definitely it seems like it's still developing, and it's a very sophisticated area of investment.
Great, thank you. Jonathan.
Thank you. So we're very different. We're a B2C company, so I'll try to make this interesting for here. Social trading means, this is one slide of a great example. When people trade on our platform, they see an overlay of how the rest of the community is trading in real time. So how many short, how much long, and this is perfect. And I think it's one of the biggest opportunities for all FinTech is for the younger people, Generation Y. 70% of our users are Generation Y exactly. They are used to Yelp. They don't understand why to go eat somewhere without reading about it. So same thing goes for how to trade crude oil or any stock of your choice. The second thing, which is very helpful for us, is differentiation through innovation. So we innovate, we offer an exciting product. That means that our marketing costs are considerably lower than the older, we'll call them titans of the market. So we're able to acquire more clients far more cheaper because we're innovating through financial technology. Just a bit about us. So we also offer copying, which is you can socially manage your money, find traders, and allocate a piece of your portfolio to them. Anything they trade goes on to you. Chat between the traders. Again, this is very retail. Signals, which are like recommendations, and of course sentiment, which is the image over here. I think the biggest challenge is regulation. They don't know yet. The regulators were regulated in Europe through Cyprus. They don't know exactly how to deal with companies like us. Trading, they understand. Social trading, not so much. And in the meantime, we're under the radar, but this will probably be a big challenge moving forward.
Great, thank you. So now we're going to move on to talking about what, as an outside attorney or as a CEO, you would tell the general counsel of the company to be concerned about with respect to the future. And our first question is, what are the main challenges that FinTech companies have to deal with?
Shall I start? Okay. I think that whenever you deal with transfer of payments and you touch with money, and you're doing with financial services and products, then in most cases you need to be regulated. So the main challenge, as I see it, I mean, from the VC perspective, but still we are in contact with our portfolio companies all the time, is the regulation. And when there are regulatory requirements, the company needs to be prepared. First of all, in some cases, you need a license, and it may be a barrier even to enter the market if you cannot obtain it. And then once you have all the requirements that you need to meet, you need to comply and to do it on an ongoing basis. So it's several things that you need to do. You need to hire and engage a compliance officer that will take care of it and will know what to do in the company to make sure that everything is in order. Your IT system needs to support also all the regulatory requirements and the needs and of this aspect. It should be something special for this specific company. And you have a lot of advisors that help you on the data privacy issue, the regulatory issues, lawyers, and of course experts, so it's also a matter of expenses, but it's a joint effort of doing so many things together to get this done. And not only that you need to be prepared with your own regulatory requirements, as a company you also need to look at your clients' compliance needs. In this area, sometimes your clients are banks and other financial institutions, and therefore your product itself of the company need also to match the needs and the requirements of your clients. And obviously, as a company, you have more than one client, and it becomes more complicated to deal with, and definitely one of the challenges. And of course, the internal procedure that many companies have it anyway, but for FinTech, I think it's more important. You need to have anti-money laundering policies in place, and KYC, the Know Your Clients procedure. Everything is more under supervision because it's a very sensitive area, and transparency is very, very important. And that gets me to another point, which is, I think, unique for FinTech companies, especially when you have licenses and you need to file an application to a license. The regulator wants to know everything. They want to have a lot of information from the company and from each shareholder. And we are very active in this way with our hat as shareholders, but still, it's a huge effort of the management and the board and the shareholders. One of our companies is it's a global payment company, and they're licensed in almost all the states in the United States and also other countries in the world. And in the process of the license application, you need to do a lot of things, provide all the information that the regulator required, and also board members need to give fingerprints from time to time, and also to submit their personal financial information to the regulator if this is required. And also, as a major shareholder, you need to disclose confidential information that you usually are not used to give to other companies or to other authorities, such as the structure of the fund and some internal information about the partnership, with the partners and the partnership. And we don't see it in other companies. And it is a combined effort of all of us, but I do think it's very unique for FinTech. It's not ordinary to give all the disclosure, but again, it goes to the transparency and the field itself. I mean, what the company are doing. It's a very sensitive, but again, a joint venture of all the parties to make it happen.
Okay.
I think to add to what Michal said, two other challenges that I know FinTech companies face. One is banking. Many banks don't like FinTech companies. They fear, just because they are more conservative, they fear working with young startups, small companies, maybe less financed, less capitalized. So just banking, I know you mentioned Bitcoin in the start. I think many Bitcoin companies struggle with banking, but I think it's general for all of the FinTech industry. And then capitalization. When you are regulated, the regulator also requires a certain level of capitalization, which can affect your growth, and you need to plan in advance and get your capital structure in order, and that can be another challenge facing growth for FinTech companies.
Okay.
think one thing to add, just quickly also to what Chen and Michael was saying. I think the integration into existing infrastructure is a key concern or a key problem that I'm seeing from fintech companies, so especially if you are engaging with financial institutions, with large corporates, to integrate into their infrastructure, understanding how that infrastructure works, having access to the right infrastructure. I think that is can be a challenge. And then also, and I think Danny is a very good example of this, is finding the right people within the large organizations to engage with. You can be spending a lot of time speaking to the wrong people who are either not necessarily calling the shots, but also don't have the decision-making power as to where this product is going to go. The ability to pivot also within an organization, I think, is an important one.
Yes, as seeing the issue from the other side, from the bank perspective, I would like to highlight a different subject, that is the human factor, meaning that to introduce innovation in a large organization is a huge problem. It's a huge problem because thanks to technologies, as I said before, we can reduce the jobs, we will change the organization, having important managers maybe becoming less important, new skills are required, and the old management is not able to manage these new technologies, new know-how, and so we have problems of people boycotting the innovation. And you must have a management of change. I saw the title here, is a key element for a big organization in order to introduce innovation. And I experienced a lot of cases where the company found excellent technologies, but they were not able to implement the technology in the organization because the trade unions, the management, few key people were against the changes. So as Mayor Giuliani said, we have to find people that can can be a leader in the change, to involve the right people from the beginning. For this we involve the responsible of the departments in the bank from the beginning. So we look for new technologies involving the responsible of the team, in order to have the expert in the innovation center, and then immediately to have involved the people that will have to manage the new technology. So the human factor is a key element to succeed, also in the fintech industry.
Great, thank you. Jonathan, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I'm just going to add one thing to Michal, which, first of all, obviously we agree very much. As a fintech company, startups are used to, especially in Israel, we start like a small team, we go out and try to take over the world. And fintech, it's very different. Not only do we need to comply with regulations, which is difficult, but I think for us, for example, our biggest problem is regulations that constantly change. And we're looking at a worldwide market, and now within Europe we have changes. Within Canada, different states we are seeing changes. That's very difficult. It's a big burden for us to continue growing, I guess, for every fintech startup. But that's what we focus on and look at a lot, the changes.
Great, thanks. So I'd like to drill down on a couple topics. The first topic is privacy. Fintech is financial. There's data. There's all this stuff. It seems very vulnerable. I mean, if you have a piece of paper, you can hide it, but the computers, I think it's more difficult. Dominique, do you want to talk about the U.S. market for that?
Sure. I think anybody who is advising a fintech company, whether it's outside counsel or inside counsel, in-house counsel, you need to think about three things as it comes to the U.S. market. Number one, privacy risks. So we talked about data flowing back and forth, cross-border transfer issues. I think the panel earlier today talked about localization of data, laws that relate to the localization of data, laws that prevent transfers to the U.S., including laws here in Israel based on the Schrems decision in the EU, keeping aware of those developments. You talked about change, but it's a very volatile and changing legal environment. So having, council prepared to stay, sort of track you in that and keep you covered is one of those things that's very important. Second issue that is extremely important is just being aware of our regulatory framework in the U.S., which is, in addition to the cross-border transfer, which is more of a global issue in the U.S., we have both state attorney generals that can enforce our privacy regulations and laws, and also our Federal Trade Commission, which is one of the most active. And then if you're doing things like broker-dealers, that we've got FINRA and some other, we have some other enforcement agencies, all of which have issued best practice guidance as it relates to the issue of privacy and protecting consumer data on the cyber side. On the privacy side, you have to think about the disclosures and the notices, because a lot of these are, transactions are happening on mobile apps or tablets, or other sort of applications, either on websites or otherwise. There is a whole body of recommendations of best practices about how to present those disclosures about what you're doing with data in the app environment, if it's a mobile app or a tablet. And then the very last thing I would say is that once you have that data, just making sure, I mean, for Mikhail with, Carmel in terms of investing, making sure that there's a plan for securing the data, however that works. But those are the three things in the U.S.
Thanks. Joseph, anything in the UK or Europe?
I think the general principles are very much the same. It's the, I think probably the top tip from a European perspective, they see the general data protection regulation, which is going to kick in 2018. It's the harmonization of the sort of various rules across Europe effectively. And also the question of data being transferred out of Europe. So when I say 2018 is the key date, that's when sort of penalties are likely to first be handed down. So for anybody in that space, and arguably outside of FinTech, of course, as well, that's probably the key date to work towards.
Great. Anyone want to talk about data privacy?
Yeah, again, especially for startups in this world, we're used to using very, for example, cloud computing and mobile. And data privacy is becoming a huge problem. Not just that we have, for example, at Tradio, a compliance officer, obviously, but we have someone working full-time only on data protection. This is something just in our industry alone, 3 companies here in Israel were hacked and then asked for ransom in Bitcoin. So we know this is coming. Everyone should expect it. It's much more difficult when you're on bigger platforms that are widely used like cloud. And another thing I want to add is that it's a lot more than what the regulator would recommend, because in my opinion, from also what we've seen, and we research into this a lot, it's social engineering, for example, is a huge issue for data privacy. A lot of times it'll be someone with too much access to your information who will accidentally share it, send it, open a file that they shouldn't be. So there's a lot about to really secure the data. You need to have a full plan and train everyone, not only to make sure that information is encrypted when you send it above the internet, which is obvious, but also to make sure that everyone knows what not to say, who not to talk to, when to immediately notify the person in charge in the company if something seems strange or off.
One more thing to add is that we mentioned the challenges of regulation and the challenges of data privacy. We view them as opportunities for us. Our customers look to us to solve their data privacy, to solve their regulation challenges, the changing regulation, tracking all of that. That's a challenge for them. That's an opportunity for us, and that's how we present it. I showed some of the logos. Twitter, for example, in the way they consume Tipalti and present it to their suppliers, they say data is captured and held and managed by Tipalti. So, deal with Tipalti. We're not responsible for your data, and we happily take on that responsibility.
Great. Let's talk about regulation. In the U.S., the regulators seem to have woken up with respect to a lot of FinTech things. CFPB is pursuing enforcement actions against certain marketplace lenders, so is the New York State Attorney General. U.S. Treasury has come out with regulations with the release on marketplace lending. We also have a New York State Bitcoin statute, which affects the blockchain world. For all of you, how is the regulatory regime in your jurisdiction affecting how you practice your companies or what you're advising clients?
I think in the UK, I would consider ourselves, the industry in that space, pretty lucky. I think the regulator is very proactive. There is a fantastic new product by the FCA called the Sandbox. This is effectively a program which has been put into place to allow disruptors to test out their innovation with very limited regulatory constraints. The FCA brings in startups in cohorts, very much similar to how an accelerator would behave. And as I said, it gives companies the ability to test out ideas with incumbents, all overseen by the regulator, without having to go and spend the money, of course, getting full authorizations in every single aspect that they're looking to do. That's one thing. Another important thing is various tax incentives and grants which are available in the UK. So once again, I think that is another reason why it is helping the industry to flourish in that space. And then finally, again, if you have a government coupled with a regulator that is looking to push an industry, what the UK is doing at the moment is it's building up a FinTech panel, similar to ours, I guess, which is effectively trying to come up with a strategy, overseeing implementation of that strategy, building bridges to other hubs around the world, and fostering, once again, innovation, but also the growth of the local industry.
Great, thanks. Anybody else? Okay. The next topic is due diligence, and that's sort of a broad topic, and that concept is different for different people on the panel. So please, Michal, do you want to go first? Okay.
Ladies first.
Thank you. Just a few words about due diligence. Some of the things are unique for FinTech, but some for all the IT companies that we see. I think that basically there are two stages of due diligence. First, the business due diligence, and then the legal one. On the business side, it really depends if the company is an early stage company or have some revenues. If it's an early stage company, which is mostly the case in our companies, you're much more focused on the product itself. You need to see that there's a lot of innovation there, that it's going to give a barrier, it's going to be a barrier to enter the market for other participants, and also that it's going to be the competitive advantage of this company, that there's something unique about their solution or their invention. And of course you need to see there's a need in the market and potential to become a big market. And you see some indication from the market at this stage, but again, the main focus it's on the product itself. If the company has some revenue, so you do the customers calls, reference calls, and you also analyze if they have a business model, and most importantly for a company that would like to be a big company, and of course for a venture capital fund, to see that the business model can be scalable. And this way the company can become big within the time, and starting from a small company to a category leader in their own markets. And another aspect of due diligence, which is very, very important, we always say it's all about people, and it's so true, because you can have the perfect product and the market, a huge market waiting for you, but still if you don't have a winning team, so it's not going to happen. And you need to believe in the founders and in the entrepreneurs that founded the company. And it's a long journey, it's a partnership. I mean, we look at this as partners that join the company, but it is a long journey to make it happen from the early beginning until they become a big company and that they have a large portion of a market and even a category leader in a market. And I think that I sit in all the investment committee of the fund, and I think beyond all, it's also very important to see that they have a spark in their eyes, that they want to change the world or to do something big, to be the next Facebook. You do need to have some sort of inspiration and excitement about your product and your company. So, and of course need to be chemistry, and I think that this is something that it's very important. And then we go to the legal part after the due diligence, the business due diligence is over. On the legal side, we do all the regular due diligence, but on this area of investment, it's very important to check, to conduct an IP due diligence and to see that they have a freedom to operate and there's no infringement of any intellectual property rights of other parties. Another aspect is, of course, the license. It is a risk on one hand when you see that a company needs to be licensed in order to operate. You know that it will be hard, it will take some time, and you need a lot of money to invest in this company. But on the other hand, once the company is licensed, it is an asset, a huge asset for the company. And it is a market barrier as well, because new players, it will be hard for them to join a market when there are established players and companies that already have the required licenses. So after, I think it's just a risk management play. You have all the things that you need to consider, and you try to elect the companies that you believe the most, that you can go together and build a great and successful company.
Thanks. Denis, your hand?
Maybe I can add, always from a different perspective, to give information how we select the company. Because we think that the market is an international market, not only Israel, not only a few countries. For that reason, we have censors, we call them, colleagues working in Singapore, in New York, London, and now also in Tel Aviv, looking for these new companies. And usually we have partnerships in each place in order to have someone that is deeply in the market to understand, to be informed immediately about new opportunities, because the best companies are immediately bought by the biggest players. So it's today a matter of to arrive early to find the emerging companies, because if you wait a while, everything is already gone. And so we have this partnership. For example, next week in Tel Aviv, we will inaugurate a FinTech hub with other banks, international banks, with Banco Santander, HSBC, Royal Bank of Scotland, and a Chinese group. And we have in the building of the stock exchange a team looking for the Israeli FinTech companies requested by us. We will tell them which field we would like to find out the best opportunities, and they will find out and propose ideas and names. We have the specialists in our team, in the Innovation Center in Italy, that are in charge of understanding which are the best companies, comparing them with the other companies in the other countries. And then at the end of this selection, we organize the meeting, and we will start the due diligence that Michal right now explained. So there is a clear process. There are a few entry points in each country. So the FinTech companies are invited in Tel Aviv to go to the floor, to this FinTech hub that will be inaugurated next week on Thursday. And so they can also join this huge world that is FinTech.
I think for you as general counsels, when you think about consuming services from FinTech companies, part of the due diligence must include verifying that the FinTech company is licensed or is capable of providing services to you. You can easily do that by looking up the license database that the regulator maintains. Part of the due diligence for you can be consulting with the legal advisor for the FinTech company and getting comfort from him or her that that is really the case, that they can serve your company. And one of the greatest critics of fintech companies are the banks serving them. If the fintech company is working with a tier 1 bank, and even if they can, if that company can provide reference from that bank, that can provide you with great comfort that this company is solid enough to serve you.
Great. In terms of benefits for companies that are being offered fintech solutions, what potential benefits are there for those companies?
One thing I think that very much categorizes fintech or any really new emerging technologies is the way we use analytics. And this is something that whenever you work with a fintech company will probably change a lot of how you look at making decisions. So for us, we don't guess anything, we don't assume anything, even everything from our marketing to our buttons to what commissions we offer, everything is based on big data, testing, seeing, trying, changing. I think that's very exciting, it's a very different approach, and I think that is very useful from all different fintech companies that are the same in this matter.
In terms of benefits to the corporations that are represented here in the room, I'll speak about B2B, where Tipalti plays, then obviously automation. Our customers say that we save 80–90% of the workload, so definitely automation and cost reduction is part of the benefits of using a fintech company. The second is compliance. Compliance is hard because it's a changing landscape. It's hard because it's very labor-intensive, error-prone, requires a great level of attention, and if you can automate that, that would bring great benefit for your company. So I think, and accessibility. The big banks have great products, not always very accessible, not always very easily consumed by you, and fintech companies can make these products and these services more easily available for you to consume.
Great, thanks. I think we wanted to open it up for questions. Yes.
Well, so I was hoping to hear a little bit more about cybersecurity. How are your firms, in particular the law firm, what are your departments doing to help your clients in the cloud especially? It seems like theft of Bitcoin and other technologies like that, right? Wipe out a company, which just happened.
Yeah, the question is, with cybersecurity in the fintech space, how do you prevent people from getting in there and...
Well, the first thing is counseling and working with a lot of the startups at the beginning to explain that the cybersecurity and securing the data should be part of the design of the actual the program and the applications themselves. So with respect to the programming, the binary code, there are, on the technical side, vendors and other technical forensic people that we can put them in touch with so that they're creating code or they're not building on top of software developer kits that are already flawed. That's number one. Number two is being very aware of where the regulators sit, and that involves, finding out where the application is going to be used. But if it was in the U.S., for example, we have 104 different enforcement orders from our Federal Trade Commission that provide really good guidance for mobile app developers and fintech companies to understand what our regulators consider to be inadequate security. And you certainly want to make sure that in developing your product and you're developing your apps, and you're investing in apps, that the developers are not taking on or adopting practices that regulators have already said will be constitute inadequate practices. If they are using also other vendors or suppliers, making sure that they're getting a requisite reps and warranties. If you're building on a cloud, for example, looking to see whether that cloud is ISO 27018 compliant, even if they're not certified, that they're close to that standard, or looking at the ISO is just an international standard, but there are a lot of others. Center for Internet Security and NIST are examples that are have sort of a global footprint. There's a very detailed process we do go through because there is quite a bit of law around this area. It is really not the wild, wild west. We have, a good 8 years of guidance from our regulators. And then, of course, in the U.S., as you know, we have our class action bar, which is the litigation side of things, where judges and courts have actually provided guidance on what companies can avoid. And so that's how we add value. But there's, we have checklists, and I'm sure, on the EU side, you guys have something similar to help guide the clients so that they're, not creating a product that from the get-go is going to create a problem. And certainly on the diligence side, I was glad to hear Michael say that, that they do look at cyber and privacy as part of the diligence process.
Joseph, anything to add? No?
I think from a European perspective, I think everything Dominique just said very much resonates with us. I think, engaging with the regulator, it's the regulatory authorities, both I can speak for Germany, I can speak for the UK. BaFin in Germany, for instance, are very much welcoming an early engagement, a vetting process, and so does the FCA in the UK. There are literally tons of seminars, webinars, information available from not just ourselves, from other major law firms in this space. It's a very active space at the moment, so I would encourage clients, prospective clients, to access as much of that information as possible. It is also a very fast-moving environment, so staying up to date and getting updates regularly, I think, is the other key takeaway.
And one other thing I was going to say there is making sure that the startup has a written information security program from the get-go with the requisite internal policies, not just for training, but also in security, also really key, and that's what regulators look for.
Great. Do we have other questions? Do we have time or no? Okay, I thought we had an hour. Okay, well, thank you so much for staying to listen to this. We really appreciate it. And thank you to the panel.